Welcome to In This Corner with Cyrus Fees. We have a fantastic show for you. Another legend stopping by the show. It's crazy how many of these icons of the sport that we have had here on In This Corner. And here comes another one. And let's just go through some accolades real quick, and we'll dive right in. A 16-year vet of mixed martial arts, first ever UFC Lightweight Champion. Incredible feuds, of course, BJ Penn, Uriah Faber come to mind. We saw him in the UFC, Pride, WEC, ONE FC. Product of the Lion's Den and Miletich Fighting System, presumptive, I would imagine, has to be future UFC Hall of Famer. You can find him on Twitch doing his thing all the time at twitch.tv/JENS PULVER, which gives it away. It's LIL EVIL, JENS PULVER. JENS, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. How you doing? Sorry I'm having technical difficulties, but I just landed here at my manager's house, and so, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm here now. I'm in.
Awesome, dude. Awesome, man. Well, I'm happy to have you here, man. And
appreciate it. Thank you.
Obviously, you know, this show, my show, sprung up out of the pandemic, so that's affecting everybody still to this day as we're filming here. It's about a year strong, it seems like. With that being said, how did that affect you? You know, and all that, man. Talk how the pandemic's been for you and your family.
You know, it's been, I think, I don't like that it messes with our kids, you know, it messes with my kids, you know, and that was my biggest thing. Whatever it does, you know, I can handle it when it comes to the fighting world and things like that, but I just don't want it to mess with my children, a whole, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think the biggest thing was they go to school 2 times out of the week, every other Friday, so sometimes 3 times out of the week, and then the rest of the time they're at home. That changed a little bit, but really what's near and dear to me is my wife is an ICU nurse, so she's on the front line, so she's been doing this and taking care of, you know, patients from day one. And it's one of those things that I'm lucky that I get to stay home because I want to be around my children. And so with this, you know, it's yeah, I don't know, touch and go. I'm very excited because I get to be at home. I get to be around my children. Of course, my wife's been
But you have to do virtual learning.
Yes, and then I'm learning the virtual side, which is okay. But the problem is now all of a sudden I'm becoming a student. I'm like, wait, I don't know if I wasn't that good in class. Like I tell everybody all the time is my GPA was based on whatever kept me eligible to wrestle. That's what I was at, right? And next, you know, I got a college degree because of it. But I think more than anything, it hasn't been that bad for us. In fact, I think it's been okay, right? Yeah. I know a lot of people have definitely having to deal with a lot more, but yeah, having a wife that she's been really busy, you know what I'm saying? But I get to be around my children, which I love more than anything in the world, you know. But like I said, I'm ready for them to be able to go back to school. I know they miss it. I know they love full time. So, you know, but I can't complain because there's a lot of people probably more worse off than where we were. But it's definitely been a weird ass year, pardon my language.
No, it certainly has. And I'm right there with you. You and I have a lot in common because my wife is a nurse as well. She's an RN. And she's worked the COVID unit since March, exclusively on night shifts. So she's seen where it's been really, really slow. And then obviously I'm in Tennessee right now, so it is burning hot where I live. I mean, we're talking just cases coming out.
I'm in Iowa, and they talk about the same thing. Iowa, the same ordeal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
With the winter is starting to freeze. So she's been, like I said, it'll have a little bit of it'll kind of taper a little bit, but then next, you know, it's getting really, really busy again. And she works nights as well. So that's another thing that's really key about trying to figure out how am I going to be at home? I can't have my children raised by babysitters. I can't go around and travel, you know what I mean? And things like that. They killed the gyms more or less. So it's like, kind of like what you did. I took on Twitch, which has helped me immensely. It's given me something to do, and I get to do what I love, which is be around my children. So it hasn't been that bad. Like I said, knock on wood, we've been doing okay with it. So for me, no complaining. But yeah, it's been up and down, kind of with you know, it's really bad right now, and then there are times, you know. So no, I get it.
Man, I have. I'll be honest with you, man. I've always respected what my wife does. But I have such a newfound, or just more of an immense respect for nurses now. Like I find myself like defending nurses and like getting on a pedestal all the time for my wife because they work their asses off. Like just ridiculous, bro. It's crazy.
Well, and not only that is, see, one of the things, and I had it happen to me on the 4th of July, and there's one of the things we got invited to a get together.
Yeah.
And when we were going, I figured everybody knew what my wife did. I figured they knew that she was a nurse, you know, whatever. And then one lady's like, wait, she what? Oh my, and then she got all freaked out and, you know, I mean, grabbed up everything and took off. Like she was so worried about quote unquote COVID, you know what I mean, and all this stuff that she packed up with stuff and left. And it was the first time I was like, wow, you're just going to make us feel like that. So we literally had to kind of just pick up all of our 4th of July things, you know what I mean? And we'll just go home. So I didn't want everybody being all, but it's one of the things like your wife does what? It's like, hey, thank you for your quote unquote service, but oh my God, you do, wow, you're really right in front of me. Now all of a sudden, see ya. And it was the first time we ever had to, like, literally, we had to just pack up our stuff and leave because everybody was starting to feel uncomfortable. And so that kind of broke me. I said, look, I'll tell you what's never going to happen. You'll never put me in a situation like that again because you know how it is. I mean, I'm a fighter first. And I started thinking, like, you're going to try to belittle me, belittle my wife. You're going to talk to us like that. It's like, there was a part of me that got really, really, I got upset, you know? And so I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm done. And that was one of those things. So I was like, you know what? We just stay at home. And luckily, we get along really well. And I love my children. We have a lot of fun at the house. You know what I mean? Yeah. We just do a lot. We're pretty much homebodies anyways. Yep. So it wasn't that bad. But that was one of those situations where I was like, you know, and I'm not trying to say, oh, poor me, because I know there's a lot of people that go through a lot of things exactly like that on all kinds of scenarios. And it's one of those things where I was like, wow, you know, and I was like, you know what? So it just kind of breaks you. You're like, you know, I'm just going to stay home. And that's one of the things with this pandemic where I'm always afraid to go somewhere because all of a sudden someone kind of gets a, wait, your wife does what next? I'm like, don't even start trying to come up with a cough now, man. Just quit. I don't want to hear this. You know, don't even try, man. So
that's funny, man.
It's just better off, like I said. And it's like, hey, thank you very much for your service. You know what I mean? I appreciate you being on the front lines, but wait, you're coming over? No, I don't know if you can do that. So it's more. Yeah. So yeah, it's tough on everybody. Everybody has a different way of dealing with it, you know. And so it's just, like I said, it's just been a learning experience probably for the entire year for almost everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. Everybody's dealing with their own situation for sure. My wife likes it because she can wear her scrubs going to the grocery store or Walmart. And nobody will get near her ass. Give her all the space.
Oh my God, dude, we're hitting it because she's like, she had to come home and change. Like, what she goes, everybody looks at her differently when she. I'm like, oh my God, I'm loving them. I'm like, please put them on. Just do it. I go, come on. You got to like, no, you know. I'm like, dang it. Go out there. I go, give me the scrubs. I'm like, luckily she's tiny, so I can't fit in them. And it looked really ridiculous if I was wearing them. But I'm like, oh my God, give me some scrubs. I'll go walking around and watch people like, hey, thank you for your service. Oh my God, and take off running. I love it.
It's crazy, man. Well, you know, one thing that's happened out of the pandemic, and I don't know if this is a good, bad thing or whatever, is Jake Paul and Logan Paul are fighting, man, these YouTubers. And you're part of this streaming community, and I just want to hit on this just real quick. I don't know if you saw this, and by the time this airs, because it'll air 3-4 weeks, who knows what's going to happen. But I believe it was Jake Paul calling out Conor McGregor after knocking out Nate Robinson. You saw this. What do you think of these guys coming from that realm, coming from being streamers? And there's been other YouTubers that have done it now that want to fight all of a sudden, and they just want to jump straight directly in to combat sports. You being a guy that was there kind of in the golden era, kind of a trailblazer. What do you make of that whole situation?
Well, you know, I mean, let's see. All right, I'm going to try and do this. You know, the one thing is I know they've done some boxing and you know, they've kind of moved on from, I don't know much about what made them as big as they are on the YouTube platform. But one thing I do know is I'm pretty impressed with the idea, because think about it. You got Conor McGregor boxing, the probably pound for pound greatest boxer to ever put on gloves. And he got to do it. You have these cards we just got to see where Jake Paul was on the card with a Legends fight of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.
Well, then CM Punk went directly into the UFC.
Well, I mean, CM Punk, but because of the YouTube, what people have found, and it's probably a catch-22, it's a good thing and a bad thing. Everybody can now be your own producer. Everybody can now, all that time you always wanted to have your own content. Or if this could ever become a show, this would take off. Or if this could become a show, this could do this, you know what I mean? You'd always had to give kind of away to Hollywood or, you know, producers, whatever. But now you have a different platform. And these two have done an amazing job with their platform. And they have, whether you like it or not, the crass contrast, what they got to say and shit sometimes, pardon my language, but
No,
You know what I mean? That's what made them who they are. And at the end of the day, they can generate numbers, and they can generate the kind of numbers that is making Mayweather go, okay, I'll box you. Really? I mean, yeah, it's like, and it's kind of like, well, you could probably, if Conor wasn't right in the middle of a fight with Poirier, he's like, these kind of numbers, I would definitely do something like this, where you can get Dana White to sit there and actually go, you know what? I'll give you this champion instead of this champion, because you do.
Amanda Nunes. He offered up Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, right. But that's what
that makes sense. That's even better numbers. That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, it's nuts. But again, I'm not. Yeah. So but that's my point. But it gets them to listen. So here you went from, no, you don't have to go through this entire amazing amateur background like a Lomachenko or a Mayweather into the Olympics to build your name so that you can get picked up by a producer and then, a promoter, sorry. And then off you go and you start having this career, and things like that. You can fast track. If you have the support, you have the numbers. That's what YouTube is. YouTube has become that place. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. But YouTube has become that place where you can develop your own show, what you love to do, what you always thought would be the best show out there in the world. Now, here you go. Do it.
Yeah.
And the numbers that it generates, so they literally have catapulted themselves right to that top level. Look who they're calling out. You know what I'm saying? If I was a 2-0 boxer in the boxing realm, it'd be asinine. People would start laughing and giggling.
Of course.
But like I said, because they have what they have as far as with the YouTube following, the numbers they can generate, that's all. Good on them. I love the idea, right? But at the end of the day, when it comes to skill set, I'm 45 years old. I would giggle, and I said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. I would deliberately give up weight. I wouldn't even gain weight. I would weigh 150 pounds. And if you really think you want to do something like that, by all means. I've been doing this for 16 years, won a world title, and at 45, I'd smash you. Smash you. You know what I'm saying? But if you want to find out, I'm just saying, and the reason why I'm saying, I'm not trying to add me into it, but what I'm saying is now you're trying to ask people like Conor McGregor, and you're asking people that are fighting and have been fighting. You're just, like you said, you're just getting into it. These people have been doing it, winning world titles. You're calling out champs. And I get it. I get why you're doing it, and it makes sense because you can generate numbers. JENS I couldn't even begin. And that's what I'm saying. It's almost comical. I couldn't even, even though technically, I would destroy you, but I don't have it's all about numbers, right? Everything's a numbers game, and they got the numbers game that makes it, okay, whatever, little guy, get away. It's kind of like what I'll try not to cuss, but it's kind of like what Conor said back then, who the fuck is this guy? Right? But that's what, they're like, look, I don't care what you won back in the day. You know what I mean? You're trying to just be relevant again. But my point is, I love that they can build like that. I love that the platform is out there. So more power to them.
I'll be honest. I've always taken this this stance on it. When I hear about the CM Punk thing, everybody got bent out of shape about CM Punk, especially your MMA, your hardcore fans, and
of course,
a lot of the fighters as well got all tore up that he went straight into the UFC. I personally look at it this way. If you get to be on the same card as a CM Punk, or a lot of the shows that Bellator does, where they get these WWE guys, whatever, if you get to be on that same card of one of these fights that might be a little outlandish, think about all the eyes that are going to be on you if you're on the undercard. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really think of it as you're taking somebody's spot, as in, with UFC, it doesn't matter how many spots they have. They don't have 200, a hard cap of spots. They can add or subtract as many guys as they want, and they do it all the damn time. So he's not taking anybody's spot. He's bringing more attention to the sport. If you had a big knockout on the same card as CM Punk, then you're going to get a hell of a lot of eyes on you. You're going to get a lot of attention. I don't really see as it taking somebody's spot or really jumping line. I think it's just this guy works his ass off to be a good wrestler or a good YouTuber or whatever. And he got so big that he was able to command a situation like that and say, listen, I want to fight for the UFC, and the UFC has to at least respect, that request. I think that's pretty cool shit. I think you and I kind of have the same feeling on that.
Well, that's it. He generated the numbers, and he was the best at what he did. It's like Brock coming over. Yeah. Brock managed it, but see, the difference was Brock had a phenomenal amateur wrestling background. He was a great wrestler. A lot of people kind of forgot that because of the whole WWE, WWF background. That's how a lot of people knew him. And he was able to come in there and really wake up the eyes of the heavyweight division, and he won a belt.
Yeah.
So the one thing you got to give to CM Punk is, and the same thing you got to give to the Paul brothers and all that, is the same thing, is they, in their field, they've done very, 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 very well. And so when you want to start realizing about these crossover spots and little things like that, why would you grab somebody who's never done it, or grab somebody who's at the top, and then now you get to bring that kind of traction over, you get to bring those people over. You're not taking anybody's spot. What you're doing is, like you said, you're creating a whole different brand. And you don't, like I said, you see how happy Jake Paul is to be on the undercard of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones? He's not mad. You know what I'm saying? He's not mad at all, because here's the thing, we were all happy to see Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. You know what I mean? But you got to be on that undercard, and it had to be about numbers. You know what I'm saying? You're not there. I'm sure there are plenty of boxers who had to go, like you said, have gone, you know, like we were saying, have to go through this huge amateur background. They've been at it for 20 years trying to build all this stuff. It's kind of what made Nate mad at the one point. You're taking everything I've worked my whole life for and this and that, because you have, but the attention. The fans love who the fans love. And if you can bring the numbers, you automatically have a position of power that a lot of people, they're trying to get to where you're at. Like it or love it. I mean, that's just fact. You can't make people love you. You can't make people hate you. I mean, they just do what they're going to do.
That's it, man. Sometimes you just got to look at it as like that's your reality, man. Accept it, know what it is. It's a fight game, man. And you get tore up about, you know, having a ranking system, which I think is crazy anyway, because you don't really honor it. You have a ranking system, and then people get mad because these guys, because they make these super fights and they make these fights that people want to see that make money. This is the reality of it. I mean, you either get on board or don't get on board. I mean, it is what it is, man. If you don't have a character, you don't want to talk shit. You know, you don't want to try to sell a fight. You can't expect to be, you know, co-main or main on one of these cards. It's not going to happen. I mean, and if you do pull off 12, 13 wins in a row, like a John Fitch or something like that, the first time you mess up, you're gone. I mean, as soon as he gets that opening, I had Sean Shirk on here just like last week. We interviewed Sean Shirk. Sean Shirk had this incredible run, won the title. First time he lost, they ditched his ass. You know what I mean? Like Dana said, bye. You know what I mean? Like you have to. If you don't want to have that character, you better win a lot of damn fights. That's
well,
it.
look at Demetrius Johnson, the greatest fighter of all time.
Example.
No numbers, no gimmick, but he just beat you with skill, a quiet set, didn't talk smack. And I'm not saying everybody has to talk smack, because it doesn't work for everybody. You know what I mean? It's not so much that, but look at Hamzat Chimaev. The man shows up with his fight. He's got his fight apparel on him because he just might jump in and fight right now. I mean, everybody does things. You can back it up with skill. You can back it up with talk. You know what I mean? Connor walked into this thing, and it was what he did has really crossed over a lot of situations, but he's knocked out people that you know what I mean? He's done amazing things. He's backed it up. There's you cannot hate on what that man has created, what he's generated, and what he's done. And I think with that, though, that's one of those things is, again, it's not so much you have that, and I don't want to see people try to run around and have a gimmick either. You know, like some people try too hard, and the fans will see that. You're just
Colby Covington,
something that makes them want to watch. And I tell people all the time is it's all about time. You know what I mean? Are people going to give you their time?
Yeah, I do want to. I'm not going to go too far back into the childhood stuff, but I do want to talk about, you know, real quick about wrestling, because, you know, everybody that I've talked to that's grown up a wrestler, I grew up in Iowa as well. I live up in, or I used to live up in Northwest Iowa and Rockwell City and Fort Dodge, that area up there.
Fort Dodge, wrestlers.
Yeah, you know, wrestling is. I wrestled for 1 year, and I wrestled just to get on my dad's good side because he was a coach. But you know what I mean? Like, it tore me up. It was like half my senior year, and I got out of there. But anyways, I know it's such a hard sport, and you get so much character from it. It seemed to kind of be your salvation as a kid. I watched some of the documentary of Driven, and you talked about that and how wrestling was kind of like what you looked forward to in your whole life, you know, really with your childhood and stuff. Talk about wrestling just a little bit and kind of what it did for you.
Saved my life. I mean, no ifs and buts about it. It saved my life. And it was one of those things where, especially later on, as we were getting older, the things we were going through, I got a brother served 55 years in prison. Yeah. And he stopped wrestling. I had a baby brother that's been my best friend forever, and he wrestled with me. And I'll always remember, especially my sophomore year, when I won the state title. And it was a big battle. I had this huge battle, me and the senior. He beat me the first 2 times, and then I came back and beat him in the regional finals and ended up beating him in overtime in the state finals. And I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget this. when I ran from the mat, I ran upstairs to see my mom. See, I'll try to keep from crying. I ran upstairs to see my mom, and I seen people high-fiving her, congratulating. I see the tears in her eyes of joy, in my brother's eyes, and I realized right then, I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is how I'm going to show my mom how much I love her. I'm going to take us on a wild ride. This is what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? I'm going to give my family something to smile about. The downfall is my name is JENS PULVER. My father's name was JENS PULVER. And I remember, I always had wrestling. That was the one thing that saved me, kept me, like, it always got us out of the house on the weekends, even though there was hell to pay on Sundays when we got back. It was the place that my mom, no matter what, she made sure we got to those wrestling tournaments growing up. And what it did is, now that I'm older and I think back about it, I think about the parents that jumped in and took care of us, because my mother worked at the racetrack, and the horses, they always want to be fed. They need to be worked out. They got to be taken care of every day. Yeah. So it's hard to find a day off. And there were people that literally would drive us these tournaments and sit there all day with us, in the summer. And as we were winning, because we never lost, right? We weren't losing very often. And they would sit there and win. And I thought, how incredible that was, that people would do that for us. But that's how I knew that that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Wrestling was the one way that I could go out there. I could show my mother, my brother, my coaches, the people that supported us, how much I love them, by just giving it 100%. Yes, it's very scary because it's just you out there. And the part I love more than anything is I'm not on a team trying to be an individual. I'm not ripping off my helmet, doing whatever I can to stand out above everybody else. I'm an individual trying to be on a team. Whether that be on my family's team, my wrestling team, my friends, I'm trying to be on a team, and I'll go out there and do everything that I can and give you my best effort and show you that that's how much I love and appreciate you. And when I seen that on her face and I seen that smile, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I didn't think it was going to be fighting at the time, but like I said, wrestling got me into college. And when I got into college, I was experiencing life and running around a little bit, but I was still wrestling, junior college All-American. And then all of a sudden, I always felt like, boy, if I could just add hands into this wrestling, this would be something. And I knew about the UFC a little bit, and sure as, they said, hey, you want to do a fight? And I was like, yeah. So I was the guy that would fight for videotape. So people ask about my career, I tell them VHS to Blu-ray. That was my career. I would literally fight for free, guys with 235 pounds, whatever it was. But I would go out there and I would fight them for free just because I was trying to build a videotape. Because I'm like, well, what am I going to do now that wrestling is over? And then when I started doing that fight, I'm like, okay, this is it. And I took off to go be a world champion and change my name.
So you were literally, so when you say fighting for videotape, so you were literally like fighting to like build a reel. Is that basically what you're saying? Like kind of putting a reel?
In fact, one time I had one of my roommates recording us, and he had it so zoomed in, all you can see is basically my shorts and the other guy's shorts. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I just did that whole fight for nothing. And sure as shit, I had to call another fight together a week later. And I go, don't zoom in.
No, man.
Fight again. That's how dumb it was. Like, I would go to gyms and fight. I would go, and mind you, there was no weight class, no time limit in the sport yet. And then finally, because of those videos of Lowell Anderson, I went up and trained with him. And they said, well, we're going to go to this Boss Shooting Invitational. And this Boss Shooting Invitational has John Peretti, who was the matchmaker for SEG. So he was the matchmaker for the UFC. And he was there with Boss Shooting, who was the heavyweight champ. And so you're going to go in there, and you're going to go up there, and this is your chance. I found they only had 170 pounds, no time limit. Next, I'm in this Boss Shooting Invitational trying to see if I can get in the UFC.
Oh man, there's something magical about that, dude. And it's so different now. Obviously, it's so organized now. And of course you have all the weight classes, but there's something just so classic and so nostalgic and sick about the game back then that I just miss it. You know what I mean? I really, really do miss it. I know it's not the best thing for the fighters. I know it's not the best thing for athletes, for the sport. It would set the sport back, yada, yada. I get it. But there was something about that shit where it's a guy fighting somebody that was 60 pounds more than them. That is that David and Goliath, that just different aspect that people want to see. People want to see that stuff. Yeah. But can you see it, right? You said to do underground, right?
Yeah, well, the problem is that's it. They try to make it underground. Whatever the issues were, then they were calling it barbaric, and stuff like that. And
I get it.
Cockfighting and stuff like that. But that was, because I still remember when I said, all right, you know what, I'm going to do this. So after I graduated Boise State University, I had a job at a high school. I was going to be the head wrestling coach and stuff like that. And I went to the Boss Rutan, and I remember the first time I got beat in the finals against this kid, David Harris. We went like 20-some minutes, and he got me in a heel hook. I didn't even whirl. I was still in, like, literally, I had my wrestling shoes, my socks, my shorts, and my T-shirt. The only difference between wrestling practice and the fight, I took my T-shirt off. I'm not kidding. I had no idea what I was doing. So I was trying to be exciting. So I remember sitting down with Peretti, and I was sitting there talking, and he said, look, you got to learn how to finish these fighters. And I said, okay. So I went back to the drawing board, trained for a couple months, went back to the Boss Rutan, and threw down and I knocked everybody out. And they're like, and I still remember saying, like, all right, well, now we're going to showcase. Now we want to put you in here. We want to create this 155-pound division. Yeah. And I remember sitting down with the principal, and I was like, all right, well, I got to go train with somebody. So I'm going to go down to California and train with Bob Shamrock, and do this. And I remember talking to the principal, and they picked me out of 20 applicants, and they just said, hey, I was there for about 3 months. I said, look, here's the deal. I got this opportunity. I'm going to fight in the UFC. All right, well, let's see how you do. So I went out there and I fought in the UFC, and I got my hand raised, and then 30 minutes later they called it a draw. And I told her, I go, I'm addicted to this. I really want to stick around and do this. And she looked at me, she said, Jens, I'll tell you what, life is short, but your athletic life is a sliver. It's a sliver. Oh, yeah. You can always come back. You can always talk to students. Go fill your book. You know what I mean? And I shook her hand, said, thank you very much, packed up everything I had, and off I went to go try to become the UFC world champion.
And that's why you fought until what, 2013, right? And that would have what, 2013, 2014? Yeah. I mean, it's hard to give that shit up. Clearly, man, I totally understand. Guys, there's so many places I want to bounce around to, man. Obviously, winning the championship was massive for you. I mean, to say the absolute least. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Miletich. I've had Pat on here. Super cool guy. I work with Pat actually on the XFC. We actually call fights together on the prelims. That being said, I love Pat. Dude is such an interesting individual. I mean, at the least, and I've only known him for a short amount of time, but I had that guy giving me the business the night before the event, talking about politics and talking about this pandemic, and I don't even know how to explain what was going on.
I don't do the politics. I stay away from them as much as but he's very, very, very passionate. He's passionate.
He's a kind person though. He's a good person.
Oh, he's a good person, but he has his beliefs. And that's and again, when you go out there and you fight, it's hard to explain to people sometimes. I don't know. The only way that I've ever done it is it's kind of like being a zoo animal. You go out there, you flex for everybody. Everybody knows about you. They break it down. They're in your face. They're in your person. They're looking for you. Like most people get pretty scared if you were telling them, hey, I was Googling you the other day. They get freaked out, right? Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, no, evidently, like there's Wikipedia. I don't even know. Somehow I guess I'm a Wikipedia page. I didn't even know there was one. I never filled it out. I have no idea who does this stuff. I mean, you don't have any idea, but when it comes to Pat, that's one thing is he has his beliefs, and it's one of those. I think people forget really fast. This isn't always just an argument. Some of us, there are certain things in life that you just can't mess with, and that's like for me. Don't let me catch you messing with the elderly. God, please don't let me see you beating on a woman. And if I see you doing anything to kids, and I'm privy, I'm going to turn into something that you don't want to see. Yeah. Pat. He's more about the political belief, and it's pretty impressive. But
do not tread on Pat Miletich. Let's just put it that way.
When it comes to that, you can have a debate with him, but he's going to believe what he wants to believe. But that's also, think about where we came from in the fighting world. There were only legal in 3 states. Yeah. They didn't have my weight class. My mother was in tears when she found out I quit my job at the high school and gave up my career basically to go start a new career with no kind of security, no kind of, we don't even know if it's going to be here in 3 years, kept alive on the internet, not even on TV. You're doing what? I go, I'm chasing my dreams. I go, I got to go do this. I got to go fill my book. Because at the end of the day, man, stories, I got to go fill my book. It's because that's all you're left with are your stories, right? And 100%. I went to do it, but not everybody loves it. Pat, like he was the pioneer. He's a 170-pound champion. He did it again. Same thing when it wasn't as big as people see it now. This was when it was, like you said, typecasted, human cockfighting. One person called it. You know what I mean? Like you just said, you had to be a prison thug to do this stuff. You had to be a dumbass to do this, you know. And that was one of those things that everybody had their thing. But back then, and because it was so small, you know, you just had to. I loved going to the events because it was kind of like a reunion. It was the same group of people. You know what I mean? So there was something about it in the beginning. But that's what I love about Pat is he has his beliefs. He's been through enough in his life. And I guess, like, you know how, definitely when I was younger, like, why are you got to be the crabby old man? Like, I didn't like the crabby old men that were really mad and cynical to you youngsters, even though it wasn't me that messed your yard up. I didn't do any kind of graffiti. I didn't do this to you, but yet you're throwing me out there with all the rest of the youngsters, right? It's like you hate the youth or something like that. What? I'm not that, you know what I'm saying? But that's one thing. They get salty. And I never understood why it was where people get salty later on in life, how they become that grumpy, quote unquote, old man.
Yeah.
But I get it because I guess if you deal with just enough horse shit, you just get tired of being in the stall. You're like, man, I'm done.
Sure.
I'm done cleaning shit, you know? And so he does. But it's definitely different. We're all different people nowadays.
No doubt. So I want to talk about WEC, and I loved WEC, and I know a lot of people love WEC. It was kind of like an even cooler alternative to the UFC back in like 2010, 2009, 2010, 2011, man. I think it was cooler than Strikeforce, if you want my opinion. I mean, and I felt like there was even bigger names in Strikeforce to a point, but what you guys had was like an edgier feel. It was different. It was you, it was Uriah, Leonard Garcia. Leonard Garcia was my guy, man.
Yeah,
I loved watching Leonard Garcia.
Bomb thrower.
You had to fight that guy.
Yeah.
Jose Aldo, obviously. What was the vibe like with that show? Because obviously you were in the UFC champion, blah, blah, blah. We know how big UFC is, but was it cooler being in the WEC? Was it a better vibe being in WEC? Because you were like top shit in WEC, like one of the pillars of WEC.
What I liked being able to finally go down to 145. Even though I'm the godfather.
That's a big deal too, yeah.
Godfather of the lightweight division, I created 155 pounds because I just didn't want to fight at 170 because Pat Miletich and Matt Hughes are way too big. I didn't want to fight guys like that. So the fact they could give me 155 pounds, I was happy. But then when the WC came around and I knew that they were getting bought out or purchased by the UFC, but they stayed at WC for a while. I think, well, can I go down? Because when I did the Ultimate Fighter and I got to see Nate and all these kids, Corey Hill, may rest in peace, Brandon Melendez, Gray Maynard, all these guys, I'm like, okay, I'm not a 55-pounder no more. God, Lord, these guys are big. And I was like, can I please go down to the WC? And I asked. And one of the things I loved is, they were all out there. They finally, it's like, all right, the little guys finally get to shine. And we get this UFC label kind of back behind us. We're getting moved into Vegas. And everything's about being in Vegas, right? The fight capital of the world. We get to be in Vegas. We get to do this. And you know, and everybody got to tear it up. But what the heartbreaker was to me, and I always say this to this day, was when people ask me, I go, look, the UFC is a monster. The UFC has done such a great job of building their brand. They're amazing at it. But MMA as a whole needs a hug. People are like, what are you talking about? You don't even know what you're saying. I'm like, really? And I go, give me an example. The WC would have never closed. You know how many of those fighters you love now? How many of those fighters are top shelf, grade A, super fighters, main eventers? You know how many of those fighters were down there in a sport that had no crowd and they had to close down because they couldn't generate the numbers, they couldn't get the crowd, because everybody knows the UFC. Everybody knows now you got a Bellator and you got ONE FC and you've got other organizations. But I'm saying back then, you know what I mean? That's what I'm always saying. MMA itself still needs a hug. MMA is not big. People do a great job of building their brand and their brand gets big. But I loved it down there because it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot more back to what I like close. Even the venues, you know what I mean? The Hard Rock and the at the Palms, the Pearl, the way they were set up, You know what I mean? It wasn't in the big venues. Then with me and Uriah, we finally got to take this thing to a level of, like I said, I think 200,000 people probably watched the biggest WEC show. 4 or 5 million watched me and Uriah. And you know what I mean? And we got this crossover. So, to know that I got to go down there and once again help pioneer the 45, the 35, the 25 pounders, the smaller guys. And I got to finally go down to my 45-pound division. It was awesome to see all those guys go over to the UFC and the fans really embrace them, right? And that's what I'll always remember about the WEC was how amazing it was, how great the fighters were, how good the show was. The first time when Uriah and I fought on that Versus, and they did those little the little fight breakdowns, the little episodes that they did, the guy's voice, it was incredible, man. I was like, oh my God, this guy was it was awesome to see him build, right? Yeah. That was one thing. So I loved watching that, pioneering that as well. But it was some of the funnest times I ever had was being in WC. I loved it, man. I just loved being around all these youngsters. I still remember looking down, having a question about how many more fights you're going to have. I go, I'm going to have just enough to retire before that guy right down there comes up. Like when it was Jose Aldo, I'm like, I'm not looking forward to youngsters like this. I go, by the time they get up there and ready to fight for the title, I plan on being done, right? So it was cool just to see the like how much it's turned around, how much it's progressed, how the fighters this day and age, the younger fighters, because I used to tell people all the time, look, be scared of the second grader, the third grader that are watching me right now. Be scared of the ones that are watching my career, because in my time, most of them, we had full-time jobs and we tried to be a fighter on the side. But be scared of the kids that get to finally say, oh, I want to be an MMA fighter. And they get to do all these classes now as youngsters coming up. And that's what I say. I'm looking down at Jose Aldo. I don't want to fight people like that. That's a new era.
I got to jump in on this because you kind of, it seems like you have a different view than I just had an interview with Phil Baroni, which was entertaining, to say the least.
You don't even know what to say.
I'll tell you after this. But anyways, so his take when I was bringing up, the new generation of fighters and how these guys learn everything all together. They go into an MMA gym and it's not a guy that's just a wrestler or just a boxer. They're learning everything right out of the gate. And he cut me off immediately and said, he goes, everybody thinks this new generation's better, but guys like Mark Coleman, who was, an Olympic champ, you know what I mean? Like we're talking about All-Americans and college champions, NCAA champions, blah, 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 blah. He goes, these guys were way better than these guys that are coming up with just a little bit of jiu-jitsu or just a little bit of wrestling that they learned at the MMA school, et cetera, et cetera. What's your take on that? Do you feel like this next generation of stars really is, I honestly, you don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but are they more of a superior like athlete or an MMA fighter than, your generation coming up? I mean, can you really feel that way?
Let's do this. Well, we'll say it like this. I get asked all the time, being the original UFC world champion, the 155-pound godfather, the guy who started the weight class. And they said this, do you think the champion you were then, could you beat Khabib now? And I go, you know what? Here's the deal. We would find out because I was the best in the world at one time at 155 pounds. A champion mindset is exactly that. Okay, the scores have changed. The field has changed. The way they play the game has changed.
Sure.
But a champion mindset is a champion mindset. If you were to project me at 28 years old and throw me to this day and age, that champion mindset is still going to be the champion mindset. And that's what I try to tell people. Take comfort in what you did. You were the best at what you were with what was there. With what you did, that champion mindset rose you to the top. So it's completely, would you be able to hang with these guys? Of course. If I was a youngster, because I had that champion mindset. A world champion mindset is in anything, in any field, whatever people do in their career. It's just they're willing to do the extra. They're willing to bleed. So if this day and age with the people that can sit there and they go to this class, well, because I had a champion mindset, I got on a train for 2.5 days, gave up everything I knew and moved out to Iowa. Yes, I was committed. And that's what people need to understand. Would you be committed enough to learn the same things now that you would have learned back then? And I think people look at it differently. Don't try to be proud of what you did with the time that you had, because you rose above the majority of the people that didn't have that mindset. don't get pulled into, could this person, because yes, you could. Why? Because the mindset is exactly that. I know plenty of people who thought they were going to do this, thought they were going to do that, and never amounted to anything because it was just too much work, no matter what it is. We can go back to the whole idea of the YouTubers and everything else. The ones that put in the work and do the background and do the work, you know what I mean? That mindset, the extra, the running, the quiet hours, the lonely hours, the last one in the gym, you know what I mean? The first one to show up, the ones that are running, and all this stuff. Point is, yeah, they're doing different things now. What they're doing now, which I love more than anything, is they have the ability to fight more. In my time, 6-7 shows a year. That's it. Even as a champion, they would let us fight in other organizations because they didn't have enough shows. But to be able to fight once a month, twice a month, oh my God, could you imagine Jeremy Horn, who managed to do it back then and fought every weekend? I mean, he could fight every weekend in the UFC. It would blow people's minds. But what I'm saying is having that mindset to get out there and fight. We would all be a whole bunch of little Hamzat Chimiyevs in my group, in the Miletich crew. We would all be ready to fight because we fought on short notice. We fought whenever they told us to, right? So that's one thing that I think, like even Baroni, take pride in what you did, because you, no matter what the era, that kind of mindset to be able to step above the majority of the pack says something. And that's why they're even asking. So I don't even compete and try to be. Could I, when people ask that question, I'm like, of course I would, because I planned on being a world champion. I planned on being one of the best in the world when I was in my prime and in my time.
No doubt. That's a perfect answer. And I think a little motivational stuff in there too, man. You ought to be doing speeches all over the place.
That's what I do. That's what my stream is every day. Literally, my stream is me speaking. And it's also the way that people bring me their fights. I break them down. Now that's taken on, I do Twitch TV / I do the UFC stream as well. Yeah. We do the same thing. We break them down Mondays. I'll watch the fights on Saturday, break them down on Monday. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm learning how to be a coach, but I'm not ready to be in the game, because like for most people, retirement is, you know, they stop doing things. For me, retirement's going to be really, really, really busy, because I guarantee before I'm done, I'll have 10 world champions. Before I leave this earth, I will train 10 world champions. But for me, is right now is my downtime. So I want to be around my children. I don't want to be, and that's where I love this platform. And we go back to what we were talking about with COVID and all that. This has really given me a great, it just helps me, because I just want to be, I'm on my stream. People bring me every day. They're like, you should be a coach. I go, what do you think I'm doing right now? I'm talking. You should be a motivational speaker. What do you think I'm doing right now? But I'm just doing it on Twitch, right? And that's what I mean. So it gives me a chance. I get to be around my kids, do what I love. I'm around fighting again. I learned how to let go. I'm sure you'll probably ask that. I learned how to let go, you know, and that's what's helped me with retirement. It saved me, is this stream. People giving me their time and wanting to come in and just hear me talk. There's nothing. I mean, you know how many people wish and would, you know, I mean, people give me their time. And so, so I've basically become an online coach. When people come into the stream, anything they ask, I answer. You know what I mean?
Well, I would say that once things loosen up, because they will eventually, get Brian there to make sure to get you on a circuit to where you're actually talking in person in front of groups as well, because that can go a long way, man. People need to hear stories like yours that aren't even in the MMA field, that have nothing to do with fighting. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whether it be a football player, whether it just be somebody that's trying to figure themselves out, man. I mean, you got a lot of wisdom there, and it could go a long, long way.
Well, good. Oh, please.
Yeah, well, yeah. But, you know, I just think it'd be real beneficial for you and for a lot of people out there. One thing I do want to bring up, though, before we kind of close things out, one thing that you've had on your stream a lot and that you kind of have a little connection with is street beefs.
I love it.
So I love street beefs. You're wearing the shirt. Oh, damn.
I got my sweatshirt on.
I love it, man. Street beefs is cool. And, you know, because I know me personally, I'm constantly looking for something different when it comes to MMA. I've been doing this for right out about a decade, as far as doing broadcasting and commentary and ring announcing and all this stuff. And anytime I see something that's different, has a different feel to it, has a different aspect of the sport, I get real excited. So street beefs, I think, is super rugged, super cool. The only thing I wish they had, like, maybe some commentary or just something, just a little bit more production to it to make it a little bit more fun and just a little bit more packageable. Because I think it could be all over the place. Because I think it's a really neat thing, but maybe because it is what it is, maybe it should only be on YouTube and should be a viral thing. Maybe that's all it should be, maybe to keep it, cool or whatever, more original. What do you think about the product, man? Obviously you endorse it. You're wearing the shirt. I've seen you on some of the videos. You have it on your stream all the time. What do you think about street beefs just in general? What's so cool about this product?
I think it should be everywhere.
It should be everywhere. I agree.
I was that kid. I grew up badly abused. At one point, I had a shotgun shoved in my mouth, and my father said, choose whether who lives and who dies, and decided I wasn't worth the bullets and beat me with the shotgun. Yeah. So I had, I've been around, I was abused. I was angry. I was doing a lot of street fighting. You know what I mean? When I was coming up. But then one of the things was I would also walk around with a pair of boxing gloves. And I started getting the sport. Once I seen the UFC, I wanted to get my little group together and we wanted to start boxing and stuff like that. And what I love about street beefs is more than anything was the way that it was there to settle beefs. And I want people to understand fighting they've got it so scary. And Hollywood, people have so scary that kids who are getting picked on and messed with, they got to go get a gun. They're so scared to go back to school, to go get a gun and do something drastic. God forbid they kill themselves, but God forbid they kill someone else and they take away. I want people to understand is the day I started fighting is the day I stopped fighting. What I mean by that is the day I got in that cage, it became a sport. It became a game. And what I started watching when it came to street beefs, I watched these kids go in there. Some of them had beefs. Some of them just wanted to see what it was like. And they got addicted. And like, oh my God, I love this. And then they come back. So what are they doing? They're going home and they're building their own little makeshift gyms. They're going in there and they're doing this. And now they have a place to go to kind of settle that little feeling of quote unquote wanting to be tough or learning how to be tough. And the reason is what's happening is it's becoming a game. And they come back again next month and they got their little outfit. They got their gimmick, you know what I mean? And they've got the stars in their eyes. And
got the nicknames. You got to have the nickname. Yeah.
No, but I love it. And I love that it's like I said, we call it an exhibition. And I'm like, oh, I got to be out there. And so I got to meet him. So I met Face and I went out and I went to my first street beefs. And, the first time I got there, I brought a bodyguard with me, so to speak. I brought somebody with me. I'm like, I'm going out to a little fight club by myself out. I'm like, you are out your mind. I'm just going to show up. Everybody's going to try to take a shot at me. So I was all scared, right? But when I got there, it was exactly what I thought it would be, what I've always seen it would be. And it was something that I was like, this is perfect. Give these kids a place where they can go out there and hold themselves accountable. The accountability is everything. You know what makes it scary? It's really easy to go to a bar, get drunk, someone say something, and you beat each other up. And God forbid you're fighting on the concrete. You pick him up, you take him down, he hits his head, he never wakes up. You're looking at 8 years in prison. Or you're so scared you got to go get a gun and you got to shoot somebody. Or you get 5 of your homies and you go in and you're going to bash somebody and beat him up or run him over, hit him with the car, whatever, because you're so afraid of it. But that accountability, what you find out what's really, really scary is when you go out there with the referee, you show up in that cage, you go out there and you do the best you can, and people are allowed to have an opinion. That's the scary part, the accountability. So that's what makes you get up, makes you start training, or it makes you start having excuses. And I love it because I think it should be everywhere. I think everywhere, because whether or not people are like, oh, you're promoting fighting. I'm not promoting fighting. What I am is keeping people off the concrete. I'm holding them accountable. If you really do have a beef, step into this cage with a pair of gloves, box it out for a couple of rounds with the referee, with the medic. If you get bleeding, we stop it. It's over. It's done. You know what I mean? If you guys want to do MMA rules, if you truly do have a beef, when it's over, it's over. There is no retaliation. There is no coming back and shooting somebody because you think you got embarrassed, you got wronged, or whatever it is. You go out there and there is nobody, your friends can do nothing but cheer. And so I think that should be everywhere. I think street, and that's why I was like, you know what? This is the level that I love, because I am going back to when I was in high school. And I remember right when me and my middle brother parted ways. I remember when he went after the racetrack, when he went after the gangster life, when he went after the violence on the streets, and I went after the competing in the cage or in the ring or on the mat. And I wanted to make my mother smile, and he wanted to go out there and just make a name. And now, like I said, he's serving 55 years in prison. I wish to God we had a street beef growing up, because I was trying to create that, box my friends at the garage. Because here's the deal. You can be in a gym and you can box the same people over and over and over. And it's like a video game. You get a res if you were to get, you can always res back up. So there's nothing doing it. What's really scary is you go out there against somebody you've never met before and you stand there face to face, but now you have a referee and you have a crowd, and here comes the worst part, you have a camera. Someone's recording it. Now, pardon my language, but now shit gets real. And now you're feeling that anxiety of what it's like to step out there in front of millions, hundreds of thousands, a live crowd of 60,000. I mean, the scariest part is the opinions that come afterwards from your family, from your friends. And that's what I love about this. And there really should be something at level. So I just want to, I'll go out there. I know there's no events now, but I'm still going out to say hi. Some of them and stuff is just to be able to go back and just be a mentor. And just to have somebody like that, like I'm not a big deal, but they're out there fighting the street and like, oh my God, Jens Pulver's just sitting here watching us. I'm like, yes, because you're trying to make a sport out of it. And that's what I love. You're not out there on the streets trying to down each other, trying to rob people, doing this stuff. So that is why I support it. And I want them to understand that's how proud I am of them, because again, they do want to fight, but they're going to do it in an aspect that, I mean, it's fair, it's even, it's equal. And so that's what I love about them, even be able to create this, you know what I mean? And then again, they get taught all the time. Do not read the chat don't read the comments on YouTube. And
never that.
Well, you know what? Because back in the day, the underground forum and stuff like that.
Shout out to Keurig, the UG.
I couldn't wait back to get to the underground forum and read what people had to say. And, you know, it's like F this. And even during my fighting career, that's why at one point I had a big Instagram following and I deleted it. And then I got kicked off of Facebook for a long time, booted away from Twitter because everybody, a friend of mine told me this later, but like there could be 10 good things said, but that one negative, I'm like, I'm going to find them. I'm going to find them. You know what I mean? So it's that accountability. So we have to teach them young. Don't read the comments no matter what.
Especially, man, YouTube's like, whew. Well, I've never seen nasty, bro. It's like they crawl out of the sewer and get to a keyboard and start saying shit.
Well, it just goes to show you what they can do with that anonymity. And it's kind of like what Mike Tyson said about social media is it got people really, it taught them how to get really comfortable and not worry about the repercussions. You don't have to worry about getting popped in the face. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things and it's a sad thing because the other thing I love about Street Beefs is I want these kids to understand is, I mean, even I know it affects me. It affects a lot, even on the streams. Like you said, you don't want to read it, you know, that anonymity. But it really does get to some kids, and God forbid it really controls them. Absolutely. And they do something stupid. I mean, like I said, you know, like even to the point where they take their own life. Yeah. I mean, I think about that. I think about my cousin who killed himself when he was 16. I never understood it. You know what I mean? But it's like they take that shit to heart. Pardon my language, and it's one of the things. You learn that there's so much more about it, but if you don't learn how to be your own best friend, it doesn't matter. And you got to learn how to turn it off because this day and age, it's a lot worse than in my day. I just had to go home. I just didn't have to pick up the phone, right? But now it's everywhere. Social media, it's everywhere. You can't get away from it. So you have to learn how to be your own best friend. You have to learn to go out there and put a smile on your own face and even that scale a little bit, because otherwise you're in trouble. If you let the negative naysayers say what they're going to do, they'll do it just because. You know, I mean, they'll do it just because. Why not? Everybody's saying good things. Well, I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to be the pissant. You know, I mean, I'm going to be the vinegar. Why not? Because they just want to.
Oh yeah, there's a whole generation of these kids that are doing it, and it's too bad, man. It really is, and I agree with you, man. You hate to see. How would you want that on your conscience that something you said just trying to be an asshole or to be a troll, whatever, and somebody take their life? I mean, that's bananas, man. Like to have that on your conscience, I can only imagine, man. It's crazy. Last thing I want to ask you real quick: why are you not in the UFC Hall of Fame yet? What's going on with that?
It's not my turn. You know, I don't know.
It's weird, man. It just seems like, you know, the place that you had and what you did. And there's obviously a lot of guys that aren't in yet. That being said, is there, like you said, you feel like it's just not your turn right now, or do you feel like there's anything else? Like
I don't think I can't imagine anything else other than, you know, people always want to talk about the losing streak I went on at the end of my career. And if that's great, because that's not what I'm going in for. That's not what I want people to remember me for. Yes, I wanted it. I was just like anybody else. I'm not ready. I wasn't ready for the athlete to die yet. It was tough dealing with that. I just wanted to figure out what was going on, why I wasn't winning, you know, the little things like that. I wanted to go back and win and compete. But what I did do is, and that's what, again, I love doing the streams and stuff, is I created a weight class that wasn't even there. I had to fight at no weight class, no rules. And I used, like I said, I used to fight for videotape, VHS. So I finally going to tournaments to fight at 170, to where I finally got to create this division, this 155-pound division. As of right now, it's probably, I would say it's the king. It's the king of all of them. Right
it
now,
has been for a long time.
I'm
One of
the
the
proud
deepest
godfather of
divisions.
the 155-pound division. And, you know, it's one of those things that I don't want that to be taken away one way or another. Whether or not, if I ever do get in, then great. If I don't, but I honestly, it's like people ask, like, what did you do? What have you done? Why? Like, did you shoot somebody? Did you flip somebody off? I mean, I'm like, I didn't do anything.
Really?
But every year that they do this, you know, it's the only thing I can say is I love and appreciate everybody that brings it up, and you, like, everybody that brings it up. Thank you, because to feel relevant, that means a lot. Because the last thing I want to be doing is sitting there campaigning for myself, which is what I will never do, because I don't believe that. But I do love that people take the time to say, why aren't you in there? You know, it means a lot. And all I can do at the end of the day is, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I can't take away what I've done. You know, I will never let anybody ever try to take away what I created, because I'm the one that went through it. I know the story. I can tell it to the T. I don't make it up. I don't exaggerate it. It's always consistent. It'll always be there. I am the godfather of the 155-pound division. I pioneered the little guys. I started out to do something like that. It was a nightmare. I got picked on. I got made fun of. I got ripped on for throwing away my quote-unquote life, because I wanted to go out there and chase this dream. And I did. And to see it now, and to see all these guys, I remember one of my goals, I never wanted to hear somebody say that they're too small to be a fighter. And the way that we're going, that's never going to be the case. So whether or not I get in, and whether or not, you know, that pioneer wing never has my plaque on there, doesn't matter. I still did what I did. And as long as they don't try to take that away, then I'm okay.
I think you're pretty safe on that, man. Well, I do appreciate it, Jens, and this has been an awesome interview. Just really, really good stuff. And anybody out there that's watching this right now, man, you got to check out Jens. He's on Twitch doing his thing. He's watching fights. He's commenting on fights. He's stopping the fights. He's talking everybody through it and educating folks. And it's really, really good entertainment. So get on to twitch.tv/Jens Pulver. Check him out. All the what do you got? IG, you got Facebook. I'm sure you got a little bit of everything.
Instagram is my favorite, so it's Instagram @Jens Pulver.
Okay.
Twitter I don't even mess with, because that's Jens_Pulver. Someone stole my name a long time ago. Facebook, I'm still around, but yeah.
Well, stay safe out there, Jens, man. Thank you so much for giving us the time, and enjoy your time there in Virginia.
All right, brother. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. Have a good one. Thank you.
There it is. So there he is, folks. That is Little Evil, Jens Pulver. What an awesome episode. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media. And, of course, we'll keep you updated with our next guest. And you can find us on your podcast apps, all of your podcast providers there for the audio version as well. Make sure you subscribe and check us out. Cyrus Fees, we'll see you next time on In This Corner.